Hello everybody, my name is Philippe Pourachemi and I've been a loyal fan and supporter of the Fashion Clash Festival. Today I would like to guide you through the New Fashion Narratives exhibition, which explores the key relationship between our clothes, identity, culture and consumption. Not only did Fashion Clash ask me to give you this tour today, I will also be interviewing the designers individually to find out more about the work. So without further ado, let's go in and find out what they made for us.
I'm Inge, I'm 27 years old and I actually started studying product design, but then I discovered I was more into materials and materiality, tactility and developing new materials. Yeah, then I started studying I wanted to study textile, but somehow I rolled into fashion in the same department at KBK in Den Haag. That's where I graduated actually last summer.
And I'm Laura, I'm also 27 years old and I graduated 2 years ago from the same fashion department at KBK in The Hague. Since graduating I discovered a bit that I'm more into fashion as a subject and not necessarily as a medium.
Well, we started actually from the idea that we think fashion is quite flat, or nowadays I feel like fashion is quite flat in what we see online, and I miss the materiality in it. And what we wanted to show in the installation, or we want actually the audience to be invited to feel we want them to feel like
use their whole body and feel it with other senses.
Yeah.
So now it's being filmed and you have to see it on a screen. It's actually
we're quite curious how
funny contradiction, and also curious if it will show on film that you still want to touch it even though you're seeing it through a screen.
Yeah.
So we're curious how this will develop.
Yeah. For me, it's really the role of our senses and how we perceive something, and it has mostly to do with the relationship between object and the person who is feeling it, touching it, etc. And I kind of want to shift this role from our sight to a more bodily experience. Yeah, that's mostly what I'm focusing on now, and I think for us both this perception is kind of like a big interest, but then on a different level, I guess. Mine is maybe a bit more intimate and Laura's interest is a bit more on society.
Yeah, so more between people.
Yeah.
So how people interact with each other, how they dress themselves, and how the dressing of yourself communicates then to others, and maybe it miscommunicates things. And my work is mostly about, I think, more society as a whole and how it functions, how it does not function, and all these little things that go on.
But it's still like, it's an interesting subject, and I think the contradiction in what is like beautiful in fashion and what is like really sad in fashion actually kind of inspires us, or yeah, the sadness thing, like the whole fashion industry, and maybe we want to take this idea of or relationship with fashion into other materials, and yeah, so I don't think we really use fashion, and I would like to work with clothes or fashion. It depends, like that's also a perception, of course, of what you think fashion is. In theater, for example, I think that's a really interesting thing because that also has to do with our senses, and it's a very different experience than just wearing it. So yeah, it's a bit on the edge, I guess, for me.
Yeah, and I'm mostly very inspired by fashion and just what I see on the street, but that can also be a lamppost. So that's very much not fashion, but you can have the same way of thinking about dressing yourself and dressing a lamppost maybe, because there are also human interactions with the things you see on the street. Yeah, and this is very much a starting point for me, what I see, and then it might develop into fashion still, or I translate it into another medium. The role of fashion I think right now fashion gives comfort to people, or it can give comfort to people. Just wearing your sweats or dressing up for yourself at home for your Zoom meeting. That's how I imagine people live now. I don't have Zoom meetings. I think a bit like this, but for me personally, my contribution that I do myself or try to do myself, but also maybe with my work, is to bring positivity, even if it's just in bright colors or somehow putting a smile on someone's face. I think that would be already a great contribution.
Yeah. Ik ben the first question. The role of fashion nowadays, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think it's changing quite fast now because of Corona, and I graduated last year, so I had a very different graduation from the years before, like more people had now. And I thought it was very interesting to see how also my fellow students started to work, and it was more like we had to work with what we had. We couldn't go to all the shops, so in that sense it's kind of like changed that we maybe are also more conscious of what we do, and we kind of lost this stress level in a way. And then also for the fashion industry, for example, it also, I think it changed that more people became more conscious of like people who cannot work at the moment or have to work while Corona is happening. And yeah, I think it's an interesting time maybe to work in, and yeah, my role as a designer now, I mostly work for myself and to explore what I think is interesting and what kind of triggers me, and I think I want to give this idea to other people or something. I would like people to feel what I feel, and I think that's kind of an interesting way for me to deal with this fashion. But I'm not so sure what my work would add really to society. I think I want to also bring people together and bring different cultures together and different perspectives together, I guess. And I think that would be interesting if people could see that as well.
My name is Anouk, and I studied fashion design at the Utrecht University of Arts, and I was always busy with materials and reconstructing materials and making new materials from second-hand fabrics. So yeah, I was always interested in the fabrics and make it into a sculpture and in a garment. Actually really goes about surviving in these days. Like normally it goes really close with the body, like we're making fashion for the body of course, but we didn't see that much people, so we more made it for sculpture. So the fashion and the garments are part of the sculpture now, and that's what we are making now. We are really interested in workwear and also in the recycled part of the industry and making new materials from the second-hand materials. So we reconstruct and yeah. Fashion is really close to art for us. You can make everything with you can make every shape and everything what you want with fabric. So it goes actually beyond the body and beyond fashion, I think. So it's more a tool to tell a story with the fashion and with the fabrics. I think Fashion Clash is really interesting because you have the exposition and the Fashion Makes Sense. There are so many parts of fashion designers who are coming together this festival. Of course not literally this weekend, but still there is a really big platform for every designer, which I really like.
My name is Georgie. My background is a graphic designer and recently shifting focus on 3D illustrations. Before I started working as a graphic designer, I was taking a fashion photography. So these days, as we all know, everything ends up in the digital world. So that's why I started to make digital fashion, because this whole situation, that was my main inspiration.
Hi, I'm Anelia. I'm from Sofia, Bulgaria, and I graduated with fashion design at the National Academy of Arts. Now I'm doing a master there, but I also attended high school with fashion. So for me, the fashion is just basically a simple child's dream, and that's what I'm doing like for a very long time. Our video was how to say, a little bit forced by these times we're living in. It was our first attempt in this kind of project, and our main idea was not only to explore the possibilities of the digital storytelling through fashion, but also to show something which is also really, how to say, really big issue these days about the equality, not only between the human beings, also the equality of the nature of everything around us. And we decided to show it in a little bit different way with this concept about Mars and how soon in our future we will have different problems connected with that.
Well, for me, because it includes a human being as some kind of a object where you use it, and you can transmit lots of messages through it, for ethnical, or it depends.
Yeah, and for me also, fashion is the perfect medium for embracing diversity, empathy, uniqueness, and it's really good also for storytelling and sending messages about things connected to our everyday lives.
Yes, and more likely, or telling more personal stories through it, like drawing genuine feelings and emotions.
So we were speaking about these things, about using fashion as a medium to embrace diversity, empathy, uniqueness, also sustainability. We all know that this is a big issue today. So I think that that's actually what most of the young designers these days do and express through their fashion, and that's what we actually should do, because apart from that, the fashion industry is something that is a big problem, not only from yesterday, from today, but from a very long time. So we really need to rethink the whole system, and maybe difficult times like this will actually help us push forward ourselves and our work.
For example, me, as I'm not a fashion designer like myself, but I'm more of a advertising designer. I can help other designers to interpret their ideas in a digital way, maybe, or in anything that I can be helpful.
Yeah, also we are from Eastern Europe, and we know that Bulgaria and Macedonia are not famous for their fashion. So it's really good to be able to present your work to an audience, to the world, where it will be appreciated and seen, and of course sometimes criticized, where you will have good feedback about your work, and that's a really irreplaceable experience to have.
People call me a fashion designer, but I never did myself. I studied for fashion. I did catwalk shows for years at Amsterdam Fashion Week, but it became more broad into product design, textile design, art, and of course fashion design.
If you had to summarize the installation in a few words for somebody who's never seen it, how would you describe it?
Yeah, well, how I describe it always is that fashion for me is this fascinating because it influences your body, how you move, how you feel, and also your surrounding. And that is something that I'm investigating by textile sculptures, also optical illusions and site-responsive clothing. Like you see that it reacts on the space around it. The main interest for me is to take casual garments actually, and I warp them, I distort them, I stretch them, and because of that I try to delay people and also to cause change of perspective on clothing.
Why would you say fashion is the best medium for you to express such ideas?
Fashion is the best medium because it's so personal. It's on the body. It's also the most interdisciplinary that I can think of. You have the textile, you have the inside, you have the make, you have prints, the way of presentation, photography, movie, and I can go on. All disciplines come together in fashion. And that's what I like, that you can create a whole universe out of it.
We have been living turbulent and difficult times lately. How do you see the role of fashion today, and also the purpose of the designer and the contribution of the designer to society?
The designer, the mission of designer should be to create awareness, to delay people. That's also something that I want to do with my own installations and creations. And fashion in particular, I think, is very interesting because it's the ultimate non-verbal communication, way of communication. And I think nowadays people talk too much. They should think more and listen more to each other. So for that, fashion has a big role, of course. I'm the most critical of the quantity of fashion, actually, especially when I became a dad 5 years ago. I became even more critical on the fashion system. I don't like the word slow fashion because the fast pace of fashion is something that makes it nice, that there is something new all the time, but it's about the quantity. There's just too much. They make 1 million of a t-shirt. You can also make hundreds of thousands of it and ask a little bit more. So that's the big problem, I think, quantity.
And how would you talk about the things that really inspire you in fashion, the things that you find great about the medium?
What inspires me about fashion are those things that is a powerful medium, that it can influence all these things, like also the space around the garment. That's something I'm investigating with clothing. But for the inspiration itself of what I create, I don't get any inspiration out of fashion at all. I get it from all other disciplines, actually.
How did you find out about the Fashion Clash Festival in the first place, and why was it so appealing to you?
Well, I'm interested in fashion, so of course I know about Fashion Clash, and in particular I'm always interested in because it's, how do you say it? It's a progressive way of looking at fashion, and that's something I really like, that you have all these crossovers like fashion, textile, art, and actually they don't call it all this. It's just what it is. And I feel really connected with it, especially with my latest works, because it's also a sort of investigation. I'm now talking about it, what it means, but actually I also don't know yet. I have hundreds of this kind of sketches that I kept in a box, like a diary, and I did hide it for 20 years. And these are some of the first things that I dare to put out. So, yeah.
So on a personal level, what does the exhibition mean to you, really?
On a personal level, it's first of all an investigation. Why I came up with all these kind of designs or creations. So I'm just making it to try out, and I'm also making it even more personal in a way. Like the hand that you see, it's based on the hand of my mom, or the shoes are my own shoes. And I like big gestures. I'm from the east of Holland. There was a lot of space, so that it triggered my fantasy, I think. But I think the concept of death is stupid. So these are little time capsules, I think, to make it, to defeat death or something. It's a sleeve of 40 meters.
It's one single sleeve.
There's one single sleeve of 40 meters. So
and how do you get it to stand like that? You pad it with something, or you just
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah. I padded it. I connected it all, and I did screws there. So it's a whole. How do you say it? It's a combination of a lot of stuff.
So it's almost like surrealistic in a way, or it has a.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I want to put. I want to put fashion outside of realism.
And is it
to
this
get
idea
it
that
closer to
we're
people.
kind of like eaten up by fashion, or we're like sort of tangled in it, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It was not that I had this idea about it, but someone also called it a crash. So it's also that kind of
Or
symbol.
a crush.
Yeah, for fashion.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome, man.
My name is Anne Bosman.
I'm Sanne Scheper.
We both graduated from Artes Arnhem. That's also where we know each other.
Yeah.
And after Arnhem, I went to St. Martin's in London to study for MA in menswear.
I went to IFM in Paris to study.
And after that, I went back to the Netherlands, did freelance things. You went to the south of France.
To design shoes. And I also came back to the Netherlands. We met again and we were like, maybe we should do things together because we were already doing freelance projects.
And also at school, we were always working together.
Yeah, so in 2017, we decided to start under the name Schepers Bosman, the brand. That's how it started.
Great. How would you describe this installation to somebody who has never seen it, using a few words?
Basically, it's the heart of the company.
It's like our home, our place where we work, live.
Yeah, it's the replica of what it looks like at home. That's where we meet people. That's where the conversations actually like this start.
Always at the table.
Yeah, that's how also the projects start, the collection starts. So basically it is what it looks like, but also kind of how we work.
In your work, what would you say are the main themes and areas of interest?
The main themes, I would say we always focus on details and putting things out of a context and try to re-see things as a way people wouldn't have seen it before, whether it is a detail, a fabric, the way things have been cut or proportionized.
And I also think that Schepers Bosman wouldn't exist without collaboration, because we are two individuals working together. It wouldn't be the same if one of us would have done it. But also the companies that we work with, the music bands that we work with. So we have a lot of influence from outside of the house, literally. But we invite everyone in like this. So that's like how it evolves, how everything, like how the outcome comes together.
And why would you say that fashion is ultimately the best medium for you to express all of these ideas?
Maybe it isn't actually. It is a base.
It's a form. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it's the best. There are many optional things, but the thing I like about fashion is it's a two-dimensional idea that becomes three-dimensional when people wear it, or when there's something inside of it.
Yeah.
So it gives different kinds of perspectives.
And I think our work very much comes alive when it's worn by a dancer, for example, or by a musician on stage, more than an actual like real model, because it adds to the personality also of the work and the movement, and I think that adds up to what we do and what we want to portray.
Mm-hmm.
We have been going through quite tough and difficult times lately. How do you see the purpose of fashion and the role of the designer in society?
Well, I think for a simple reason, fashion can brighten up your day. I mean, it's the closest thing. It's the second closest thing you can express yourself instead of your own face.
It's like one of the first things you do in the morning. You choose something, whether that's a pajamas or something to go out, but it's the first thing you touch and you think of, and it's close to your skin. So I think also it can make you maybe a bit more confident, or can make you feel stronger or cozy, or can add up to how you feel, especially
how you want to feel.
How you want to feel, like especially in harder times. For me personally, it helps when there's something around you that protects you or makes you feel soft or warm, or very intimate actually.
Which aspects of the industry are you the most critical of?
The fact that everything has to make an impact. There's not much space for gesture, and everything is about likes, profits. Everything has to be big. In the small movements seems not. There's a little bit of space, but also maybe thanks to Corona, things are getting more even and leveled at the moment, which is quite interesting now.
Yeah.
And right now, what would you say inspires you the most about fashion?
Maybe the things outside of fashion actually.
Yeah.
The people around us inspire us, I think, a lot. The people we work with, the people we see on the street. And I'm thinking about that a lot lately, like why do you do this and what makes you feel good about doing this? Because there's a lot going on, and sometimes you think about maybe like how do you want to proceed? And the one thing that never stops inspiring me is someone on the street that's wearing your garments. Someone that wanted to buy your garments, that like wants to give money to wear it or to have it. That's something that like I think will never stop inspiring.
Yeah, but also when artists are wearing it on stage, it gives a different perspective, and also the way they wear it, it's like a new point of view which can helps us evolve in the next collection and next thing.
The best is when someone does something with it that we can't do ourselves.
Because we aren't like that.
Yeah, like in a music video or on stage, or like when we are surprised of the work. Yeah.
How did you find out about Fashion Clash, and why would you say the festival appeals to you?
Fashion Clash is a very welcoming, open-minded festival in my opinion, and it's bigger than the Netherlands. And that's something that appeals to me, that it is very open and welcoming to everybody.
And I am from the south, near Maastricht, so I'm familiar with Fashion Clash, and I think it feels like a family. More than any other festival or fashion week that I've been to, it doesn't feel like work, while it is very serious. And I think that's a very good thing in fashion nowadays.
And it feels more like a movement instead of a competition.
It's more together, maybe.
On a personal level, for the two of you, what does this exhibition stand for?
For me, it's like a variety of things we do, and also a certain kind of absurdness that we don't want to really focus on one thing, but more show a broader perspective on things we like and things we see and things we want to show to the world.
Yeah, I think also maybe it's bringing something that's basically us to an exhibition, instead of just showing your work, this is our home. We're actually working from home. So it's a part of our life, actually, part of an intimate.
This is how the studio looks like, this is how our living room looks like.
Yeah, this is what the rest of the world never sees.
Great, then we get to see it first.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we are Studio Louvre. I'm Elin, and
I'm Lena.
Yeah. We both graduated from Design Academy in Eindhoven in 2019. Afterwards, we moved back to Amsterdam, where we started to share a studio space together. We both worked on individual projects, but when the pandemic started and when we saw that Fashion Clash had this open call, we felt that this was an opportunity to start a project together. We both work with textiles, and we both have an interest in topics related to body and well-being. So there we could find each other and felt a common interest. Use actually of different materials and techniques. We develop our concepts into a physical representation of a certain feeling or an emotion. And this we want to express in clothing and in materials.
Yeah, and actually often this relates to a contemporary approach on the way we interact with our surroundings and also how we relate to ourselves and to others. So it's a complete picture. For Fashion Clash, we created the project Ozone, and ozone, it's related to the ozone around the Earth, which has to do with air. As we started the project during the pandemic, when suddenly air, which for us is something very light and poetic and beautiful and positive, suddenly became something that could be our enemy because it basically transmits a virus. So we decided to turn inwards a little bit and see what this feeling of space suddenly did with us. And we decided to create 3 different jackets with 3 different materials that all are about the way that air plays a role, or actually 3 themes of the feeling of volume, transparency, and sereneness. So we have one piece that shows a light volume of textile that expands the space around the wearer with very little movement and different layers. It just expands by the lightness of the textile. Then we have a second piece that is literally creating a transparent separation from the air that's close to your body and to your face, and the other air of other people and your surrounding. And then there's a third piece that is actually a blueprint with a special technique that is, how do you say this? It's like made with the use of UV light. And this results in a very beautiful blue color print, which is considered beneficial to the mind and body, and meant to let you feel serene and more inwards, basically.
Because of our interest anyways in the body already and how we express ourselves, we feel very much connected in the use of making garments and things we wear, especially because it represents a certain identity and a certain feeling or mood where you are in. And since that is connected quite a lot with our research or our concepts, we feel that fashion is a way to express these thoughts and these elements what we want to show.
We think that fashion is a little bit an outdated word, because we think that the role of the designers nowadays is to really think of how the things and the materials that we wear can be more unique and more personalized, so that it's really focused on the wearer and not so much on how much of it you can sell or wear or have, but that it's really focused on who wears it, and that the person who owns the garment or leases it or whatever structure we will have in the future, that the person really understands what the value of the item is, and therefore also will have be more careful with it and take care of it and have a deeper emotional connection basically with everything that we wear, instead of just that fabric that initially protects you. What is really inviting about Fashion Clash is that it's really free. So you get an opportunity to really build from your own ideas, and there is no assignment. There is just the freedom of creating something that you want to make. That's also why it gave us the opportunity to do a project together for the first time, actually. So it's really a premiere. We can create something that was maybe on our minds for a while already, or something that we can build up to, but it gives us the opportunity to actually make it through and have a goal and a reason to really fine-tune everything about the project. And also that of course it's a fashion related project, but there are so many more aspects that you can also include. And the festival really gives us a lot of freedom on how we want to present our work.
I was actually gonna go into painting about 7-8 years ago. I was living in Canada at that time, and I wanted to go to New York to paint, to do an undergrad in fine art. But then for some reason I came to London and I started doing a foundation in art and design, and I wanted to go into fashion because I was making really sculptural pieces of artwork around the body. So that's how I got into doing a bachelor's in fashion in London. And that's how I got into women's wear. And so I've been doing that for about 3 years. And a lot of the times I was, looking at vacuum forming pieces that are, being sold in mass production. And so I thought, I've always been really interested in that. Why not go into, accessories? So then that's what I did my master's in, actually, for the past 2 years at Royal College in London. And I finished that last year. So yeah, that's how I started, I guess. I'd say, in a few words, I would say unconventional, quirky, and funny. Key area of interest is definitely providing a narrative and combining, sort of the social context of everyday objects, because these are things that we see every day. And so a lot of my work is repurposing mundane objects from the house, or from the house, from the kitchen, just everything you see every day. But I sort of, just wanted to embrace the shape of them and craft them into pieces that you would think are fashion items, and in particularly, accessories. But they're totally non-wearable, but some pieces are actually. It's not your, everyday handbags or shoes, but it's a narrative that's the most important to me. So I would say that is the key theme, yeah. In terms of my materials that I use, you just would not necessarily associate them. First of all, they cost nothing to make, involving, injection molding, casting, and various forms of, molding in factories. That's where all my materials are from. And you see them in, pound shops, you see them in homeware shops that cost, 90p. And I think what I'm trying to do is, kind of think about, what if I make these materials into, you know, one-off pieces, something you've never seen before. And you know, a lot of people, you know, associate with custom-made designs or one-off pieces in fashion, you know, to be obviously at the luxury and at the high-end, you know, level of the market. But so this is kind of the comparison that I'm trying to make, and sort of just making a contrast in this. And I really enjoy doing that, sort of, you know, making something so something that costs nothing, or at least you think it costs nothing, into some unique pieces. Or yeah, I just wanted it to be, you know, crazy and kind of, you know, funny, because no one would ever think that these things could be, you know, made into something that associates with body and fashion especially. So yeah. So especially now, you know, in the challenging times, I think the role of a designer has definitely changed a lot. And I think I'll start off with saying, you know, linking to my own personal practice, actually everything that I'm showing in Fashion Clash this year, it was all made at home, and it was all very, you know, I've actually just moved out of my studio at that time. So the time of making I spent at home, it was all using very low tech, you know, approach. A lot of it, some of it, it actually, you know, it involves glue gun, it involves a cutting mat and knife, and just a Dremel that for me to drill holes and, you know, stitch it up together. So I think the role as a designer is to, you know, just utilize what you've got, even though you're in a space with limited resources. But actually it kind of makes you think outside of the box as to how to, you know, not necessarily minimize collaboration, but sort of, you know, how to do everything in-house, minimize your costs, but to produce, you know, the most effective work, if that makes sense. So I think sustainability definitely come into place, you know, not sort of oversourcing or using too much materials that, you know, that's just going to be left in stock for years. I would say definitely the production, and I would say even marketing as well, of fashion, because yeah, I would say we all need to, you know, start being very critical about it, kind of thinking new ways of presenting work. And for example, as well, you know, in Fashion Clash, like, I think it's a great idea to, you know, move it to a digital event, and it's, you know, something we've never tried before, but it's gonna have, you know, a great impact on everybody. Now we're so used to already, you know, within a few months, like Zoom calls and just, you know, video meetings and stuff. So I think it's just a new experience. My friend Jimmy, he's a shoe designer. He was actually in the Edition last year, and he told me about it. We were sharing a studio at one point, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it this year. And yeah, for me on a personal level, because I had a background in fashion and it was very technical, and, you know, in the times of education, you're constantly thinking about, you know, your audience, making them into products, making them into things that are wearable, or at least, you know, some part of your collection. But I think this year especially, I've kind of realized that I'm moving away from that. Not necessarily trying to, you know, have a label to sell products, but for me it's more about, you know, art installation, going into a bit of set design as well, and art direction. So this for me is, you know, kind of a step forward towards, you know, emerging arts in my career, rather than, you know, always thinking about, oh, end products needs to be a handbag, a wearable one. So yeah, so it's been really, really nice to be able to do that, and just exploring, you know, that side of me.
We're
wordsonfashionwebsites.com explores the use of text in the realm of online fashion media. The website is connected to a selection of 10 high-profile fashion websites and offers the option to search, track, and compare the use of text on these websites. The first general association with fashion is probably clothes, models, shows, and fashion photography, but it's not very likely to think of text when thinking of fashion. Nevertheless, it is an important actor within the construct of fashion. Titles, subtitles, and captions address certain topics and imbue products with value. They can make a garment new, effortless, original, and thrilling. They can turn garments into fashion, into dreams, and into feelings. And it is through the choice and use of certain words that we can read today's cultural, social, and economic values.
I've just talked to Josipa Stefanek, who came up with this wonderful installation within the space. And she's very interested in a garment as a shelter, this idea that clothes can protect us, that it can be an intimate and private experience to carry and wear such garments for ourselves. What is interesting also about the shapes, I think, is that they are between animal and human. So you cannot really categorize the work. You cannot really define it, but it touches you on a personal level because there's a degree of familiarity in the shapes that you see. But at the same time, you are being questioned by what clothing means and how we use it every day. So for example, if you look at this piece, which does hint at a human body, it's an abstraction of what that body is, and it gives us the feeling of comfort, the feeling of protection, the feeling of being secluded from reality. And I think right now, in the kind of context we are living, it's a very soothing and it's a very reassuring proposal. So I think what she wanted to share with us was something non-threatening, an idea of fashion as artistic creation, as an expression of yourself, but also as a way to incorporate oneself in the environment and almost disappear within the world.
Mi nombre es Juliana García Bello, soy diseñadora de indumentaria, egresada de la Universidad de Buenos Aires. Nací en Río Grande, en Tierra del Fuego, una provincia al sur de la Argentina. Actualmente vivo en Arnhem, en Países Bajos, y estudié diseño de indumentaria porque utilizamos ropa todo el tiempo y mi familia me transmitió un saber muy importante que es reutilizar lo que ya no está en uso. Bueno, mi trabajo reflexiona sobre los objetos, sobre la vida útil de los objetos. Trabajo con mi comunidad cercana, que son mis vecinos y mis amigos. Reutilizo las prendas que ellos me donan con una técnica en upcycling. Reconstruyo estas prendas y utilizo una moldería zero waste. Y bueno, lo hago de una manera muy particular, creo que tiene que ver con haber nacido en Argentina y ser latinoamericana, así que mi trabajo habla un poco sobre mi identidad. Bueno, en mi trabajo principalmente buscamos y desarrollamos e intentamos descubrir nuevos caminos con economía circular y producción circular. También desarrollamos sistemas de producción que pueden ser transmitidos a otros diseñadores o a otras empresas, ayudando a otros a crecer. desde una mirada un poco más colectiva y más humana. Descubrí Fashion Clash en el 2014, seguía la plataforma en las redes sociales porque creo que compartimos valores en común y porque el equipo humano que hay detrás de Fashion Clash me representa un montón en los valores que transmiten, y decidí en el 2019 presentarme en el Fashion Makes Sense Award porque no solo quería compartir mi trabajo con otros diseñadores, sino que tenía ganas de poder interactuar y también proyectar con otras personas con las que puedo compartir el mismo sentimiento por la moda, ¿no? See you in February.
Willem-Mijke Brands. I'm 28. I studied at Willem de Koning in Rotterdam almost 4 years ago. I started at graphic design and I did a minor in digital crafts, and I graduated in visual art, fine arts. So I'm actually a visual artist. And I kind of discovered this printing technique that I use here, and then I got really into textiles, and from there I started going into the direction of fashion actually. So my background is actually visual arts, reusing textiles in a new way, and using the imprint of a textile, of waste textiles actually. I think it always starts from a material, not always textile, and mostly waste materials, and that is also how this started. I kind of started the experiments with waste textiles. Yeah, from that I discovered the technique, and so it's a lot of the times it comes from experiment with materials. I think it's because at first I implemented it in big textile pieces, just like as an installation or an art piece itself. And then at one point I was like, okay, it comes from a garment, so it makes a lot of sense to bring it back to a garment. So that is why I think, I think nowadays you see a lot of change in the fashion industry, which is really good, but it's also still a lot of mass production, a lot of waste, and I think that is why it's really interesting to me to find ways to actually find solutions to rework textiles, to rework existing garments, and that is why what I do in my work as well. I create new pieces, and I also use discarded garments and I print on them, so it's kind of a mix of both of them. And also I use existing waste textiles and sustainable textiles, so it's always a mixture of both of them. But to me, Fashion Clash is like really refreshing and like an open atmosphere. So that is why it was like attractive to me to be part of it.
I was intrigued by this. Is it like a piece of material where you put several prints?
Yeah. So, for example, this is a part of a blouse, and these are some parts of garments as well. This was like an anime blouse, and I cut it up in pieces.
What's the material?
The base material is a waste curtain. I have a collaboration with the textile bank, and I get like waste garments and curtains. So it's
it looks like silk. It's really nice.
It's not.
No, it looks quite delicate. And this is mesh, right?
Yes, this is mesh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yes.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. Thanks.
my name is Linnea Bogander. I'm a fashion designer. I have studied fashion design at the Swedish School of Textiles. I got into fashion, I think, from the joy of dressing out when I was a child. And it started from there, and then I just went into making things for myself, for wearing. And then it became my job. Reforming the body, I would say that it's about that. And it's also about using the movement of the body as a material to do that. So it's not just about the form of it, but using the movement to generate new types of moving forms. I would say, like, visually, I'm very interested in materials and what I can do with the materials. Like, what happens if I fold them, if I mix them with something else when I sew it together. And also I'm very interested, of course, in the movement that they can generate when they change, like the quality of them. And the third thing is that I have a tendency to also go towards geometries and to sort of see to the structure, what structures I can use and what structure can be behind. I would say that the medium is it comes from my training. So I would say that maybe there are other mediums that would express it similarly or add other things, but because of my training and because of my interest, that's the medium I can like that I have the skill in. So therefore it's the best. Sometimes I feel that some of the ideas that I have would better be executed as animations, but I don't have that skill, so I cannot go there. I would say that the purpose of fashion and I would maybe compare it to how you usually talk about art in these contexts. So it's about also addressing like non-verbal issues. Like in these challenging times also, I think that like narrative and performance are also coming, like we see more and more that fashion designers are using film to create more. So I think that those are the things that the challenging times are giving creativity to the fashion industry in that sense. I would say it's the mass consumption. Like that fashion has become synonym with like mass producing. And that it hasn't always been like that. But now when you talk about something that's only done in one piece, you also think of it as something else. So that that's the thing I'm most critical about, that it's become both that the definition has become so narrow and that also it's not a sustainable way of producing. And that also, I mean, there are many things that we can buy. So there's a choice, but still that choice is limited depending on how it has been designed. that's a bit like I want to go to aspects of form immediately. I think about examples where form is challenged. What inspires me mostly is the new materials coming and the possibilities of form that they give. About it through I have friends who have been exhibiting and showing previously, and I've seen it as a good platform, like interesting works have been presented, and I thought that this film that I've done for or that I did with it's a collaboration with Nicole Neidert and Joakim Envik Karlsson, but I thought that one could suit this forum. If it wouldn't be COVID-19, it would be a great opportunity to also be there and meet and experience what other people have done in a closer way. So I'd say that that's what it would have meant. That maybe the reason I applied. But as it is now, it means maybe it means those things still, but on a distance level.
Well, all great things must come to an end. I hope you have enjoyed watching these interviews as much as I have done it, talking to the designers. Hopefully this was informative, enlightening, and it gave you new perspectives about fashion and about stories and what we can do with this wonderful medium. That's all for now. It's a wrap, so thanks a lot for watching us today.